1 2 1 2 1 2. So, as you can see, it's February the 28th today, and this is a little bit of drone footage, rather, of George ploughing the cover crop in our potato field. In the sort of top of the screen there, behind or to the right of the Challenger, you can see Farm 2 there. That's the sort of other side to the farm that we own. But yeah, so George is ploughing the cover crop and doing a lovely job. I haven't done too much in the way of videoing this one because you've all seen a plough before, and we're ploughing it in roughly about 8 to 9 inches, well, probably 8 to 10 inches, and that will give us all of the seedbed that we require for our potatoes, and it will be roughly about 10 to 14 days before we're back into the field, and we'll be planting our potatoes this year. But I just thought I would do a little bit of drone footage, as I say, of George ploughing the field. I didn't get a chance, as it was, to go out into the field with George. This, as I say, is a little bit of drone footage that's been shot by my wife, and as you can see, it's a lovely February day. It's very cold, it's 2 degrees, but there was a nice sharp frost this morning. We've had quite a wet, as you can see from the puddles there in the background, we've had quite a wet winter. We did have a period of snow, so probably the end of December to the middle of January, there was snow pretty much on the ground all of the time. That then made way to just sort of really wet weather. So with a fairly wettish autumn, we didn't get all of our milling wheat drilled this year, but and then, as I say, with the wet winter as well, we were unable to, normally we can sort of plough and drill in December. We can plough and drill in December, and that would, sort of suffice us with our wheat and help us to get it all in. But this year that hasn't been the case. But the cover crop has done its job. So we've obviously retested the soil now, and a lot of the nutrients and nitrates that we're looking for growing potatoes is there. There's a bit of acidity in the ground, which is good. You need that for potatoes, and everything so far is looking fairly good. The weather's set fair, so we've got the forecast, and for the next sort of 10 to 14 days at the moment, everything looks dry and looks good. I do believe that in a moment my wife swings the drone around and we look out over the other side, and you'll be able to see you'll be able to see that we've ploughed the land that's also coming potatoes on the other side of the farm. So there you go, just over there, those two fields there, and then that field over there has still got the cover crop in, that field still got the cover crop in, and then the field you can just see through the trees there at the back of that shed, that's still got the cover crop in. This is all going to be potato land this year, and as I say, we're getting there. We would hope by the end of this week, say it's Wednesday at the moment, we would hope by Friday we would have all this ploughed. If need be, we can just chuck another tractor onto a plough, and we could have 2, maybe 3 tractors ploughing, and that, as I say, will help us to get our our ploughing for our potatoes this year done, and that will also conclude ploughing for 24-25 season. So then we'll just be on to planting and drilling and stuff like that. But as I say, it has been quite wet, so we are ploughing a lot more land than normal this year. But so that's not going to please the eco warriors of the world that we're using the plough. But they'll no doubt worry about it as they jump on their plane and fly halfway around the world just to sit on the beach. So you know. But yeah, we're using the plough, and to be fair, the plough for us still has a very important role to play in farming. You know, it's a tool that enables us to control blackgrass. You know, without the need of chemicals, you know, we can get a really good flush of blackgrass in the autumn. You know, the same in the spring if we, you know, if we really require it, and then we can plough it in, and then you know, we can then drill the field from there. Once we've drilled the field, obviously we can then apply a pre-emergent, and that pretty much will control blackgrass and ryegrass and you know and other pesty weeds. But you know, so you know, yes, people in YouTube land get upset, or not necessarily in YouTube land, but in life in general. You know, you hear these what are they called now, these woke people that are, you know, slagging off farmers that do this, that and everything else. You know, but they also complain when there's not a perfect plate of food sitting on their table. So you can't have it both ways. And like I say, when you get on your jet going on your foreign holiday halfway around the world, and just to sit on the beach, you can have a good contemplate and think about it, and come back and say, who killed the ozone more, me with my tractor and plough, or you with your aeroplane? And that's all I'm going to say, because otherwise it becomes a political rant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop talking. We'll do a little bit of drone footage, and you can see, as I say, George ploughing the field. And the next time that you join us, we will be in this field and we will be ploughing. We'll be planting our potatoes. So I look forward to that. It's always good when we get them in the ground, and you know, conditions, especially if we can get them in you know, sort of ideal conditions. You know, this will dry nicely on top now, because it's a little bit wet as we're turning it over. But again, you know, as we said in the video where we were planting the cover crops, you know, planting the cover crops with the worms, with everything else that you sort of are doing to the soil when you're doing this. You know, the soil is very friable, it's very crumbly, it's really, really nice soil. It has a very consistent or a consistency of sort of really nice black peat land and sort of a composty feel, which is just ideal. As I say, it's quite acidic, and we get that by spreading slurry onto the field, and digestate, and you know, sort of chemicals, well, fertilizers such as that. Really, they're not really chemicals, but fertilizers such as that, and that just gives us the tiny bit of acidity that we need in the ground. We don't want it, you know, to be completely acidic, because nothing will grow, but it just gives us that enough to get a good tuber and get a good development within the crop. But yeah, so George, as you can see, has nearly got this ploughed. As I say, next time we come into the field, we'll be with the planters, and you'll get to see what we do to achieve our seed beds, and how we try and go about it. So we try not to have. So years ago, when my dad used to do this, you know, there would be, you know, probably 8 or 9 tractors in a field planting potatoes. We try not to do that, mainly for compaction purposes and reasons. But yeah, we try not to do that. So you're not going to see a field full of tractors. You're going to see at tops you're going to see 4 tractors in here. And yeah, and as I say, we'll go from there really. But anyway, that's it for now. And as I say, George will have had this field completed, and then and we'll be in with the planters. 1 2 1 2. Hello everyone, so I'm back again. So we showed you in the first part of this video us ploughing the field and getting it ready for potato planting, and now we're going to I'm going to show you how we plant the potatoes. So as you can see, we've got 5 of our vent crawlers in this field, and I'll run through very quickly what each of them is doing. So 2 vents are doing the same job. So we've got the 2 smaller vents, they're both on 6 meter power harrows, Kuhn power harrows, and the reason that we go for 6 meters is because not only does it fit our wheelings for all of our other equipment, which is either 6 or 12 meters, so we're able to keep all of the wheelings the same. Now, before GPS became so advanced, these power harrows would have run on with bout markers, and that would have been what would have kept us then in the same wheelings. But obviously with GPS now, we don't need them. So yeah, as I say, we've got 2 of these Kuhn HR powers and 6 meters, and they're basically, so what we're not looking to do with these power harrows, and they are moving sort of relatively quickly. You'll know that from the video that we made about the cover crops and making the soil more friable, which essentially just means making it far more crumblier. So the ploughing has weathered down. It's had a little bit of rain on it and some frosts on it, funnily enough, with the 2nd week of March at the moment, and it has had some frosts on it as well, and it's broken down really nicely. Now we've got fairly good land here that we're growing the potatoes in, but we've not got the power harrow in very deep, as you was able to see from the tines, and all we're trying to do is level it. As you can see, when I put my hand in it and pick it up, it just sort of crumbles in my hand now. We're not looking to eradicate all of the clods. Yes, we want to eradicate the biggest of the clods, but we don't want to eradicate all of them. They're going to become helpful when we come to harvest, and when we come to harvest, obviously we want a little bit of mud on the potatoes just to protect them as they fall into the trailers. And then coming next, we've got the vent 1167s, and these 2 tractors are both on 6 meter Grimmy power ridges. And what these do basically is, or bed formers really, is the sort of the term that I know them from growing up. These are the bed formers, and these are basically just making, as you can see, tatey rows that basically don't have potatoes in them, but they're forming the beds. And as you can see now, when we get down a little bit nearer, you can see there's a little bit of clod, all the way along there. There's a little bit of clod. There's actually some some sugar beet there as well, which was left over from the last harvest, but that's not going to cause us too much in the way of problems. But as you can see, the tines are just going through, then it rotivates, and then once it rotivates, it gets pushed through these tubes essentially, and that forms the bed for the potato. And as I say, we've got 2 of these on the 1167's vent crawlers, and then last but by no means least, we come over to this one, and you'll notice as well, or you may not have noticed if we've not caught it, but these tractors are taking very, very wide swings when they go in and out of their work. Now the reason for that is that we don't want the ground screwed up on the ends. So what we're doing is really big wide swings, and it helps to keep the ground sort of, not too heavily chewed up or compacted. And then, as you can see from the Tatey planter, it runs along the rows that the bed formers have formed, and it's able to plant the potatoes into those rows. And then with the following harrow, as I call it, that's able to then to reform the bed rows properly, and you can see the difference. So these are a little bit darker, it does go in a little bit deeper, but not only that, of course, the soil's already been turned over, sort of it's been mixed up by the powers and then turned over and then rowed up by the bed formers, which are there. And then as the planter goes through, it redoes it, and so you get this darker texture. And that's essentially, well, I know the tractor's also got GPS on it, but that is if you didn't have GPS, how you could tell where your next bout was going to be. And we've got my lovely wife driving the potato planter today. I'm on potato planting filling, or the box filler. That's my role for the day. One or two people maybe sort of watching this and thinking it's a little bit overkill, isn't it? Do I agree with that? I don't know, maybe. I would say not. You have to remember that the spring winters are very tight, and not only have we got the potatoes to plant, we've got the carrots, the parsnips, the red beets, the sugar beet, a little bit of spring barley, the peas, and the corn that we have for the anaerobic digester. So we silage that, and we've got all that to do as well. So is it overkill? I don't think it is. Some may well think it is, but we want to be covering the acres, and we have to be covering the acres rather quickly, otherwise we do end up behind, and once you start getting behind, you never really catch it up. But what we'll do is we'll have a little ride on the potato planter, and we'll get in the passenger seat, and we will talk a little bit about the history of the potato and how it came to be in not only the UK, but also you can see there, look, the spade, as I call it, going through the ground and just turning that over. It's doing an absolutely fantastic job. Really, really pleased with the way it's going, and we're going to hopefully come harvest time, which this field is scheduled to be harvested in the second week of August. Weather permitting and all of that, and barring any disasters. But yeah, so that's the plan, the long-term plan for this field. But as I say, what we'll do is when we get to the end, we will get into the Challenger or the vent, and we will we'll have a ride. Let's just see if we can catch up. There we go. And yeah, so there we go, we're in the passenger seat now. And yeah, as I say, we'll talk about a little bit about the history of the potato, how it became to be in Britain and the British Isles and Europe, and we'll go through that. And then towards the end, I guess by the time I get to the end there, the planter will need refilling. So and that's K, by the way. my lovely wife, but she's very camera shy, and she asked me not to mention that who she was and what was going on. So what we'll do is I'll sit here in the passenger seat. I'll throw up the drone, and then we'll go through some of the history. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 The first thing that I would like to say before I give the history, one thing I'd like you all to remember is that first and foremost, I'm a farmer and not a public speaker. So if I stumble my words and trip over my words, I do apologise. This is not something that comes naturally to me, but I sort of myself and my wife felt when we first came up with the idea that it would be really interesting to know to give a brief history of the potato and the way we grow it, the reason why we grow them, the way that we do, and everything like that. And so therefore, that's why we've sort of chosen to do what we've chosen to do. What we would maybe like to to do in time is maybe do a few of our other crops that we grow, but for now, as I say, we're going to be doing the potatoes. So Thomas Heriot was the man that introduced the potatoes, and Thomas Heriot was an English astronomer, mathematician, entomographer and translator, and he is credited with introducing the potato from Colombia on December the 3rd, 1586. It was whilst he was working out in Colombia that he was given what to the Colombians at the time and other South American countries at the time was a delicacy, and this delicacy was the potato. It's not clear how the potato was prepared or cooked, but that was what he'd had, or he'd been given, and he fell instantly in love with this odd-shaped vegetable. He asked the kitchen and the staff, to bring out the potato and to show him what one raw looked like, and they duly did. And he is, as I say, credited on his arrival in 1586 on December the 3rd of bringing back with him the humble potato. So the potato quickly caught on, not only in the UK but also in Ireland and across huge swathes of Europe, which included Spain, France, Spain, Portugal, Russia, Germany. It quickly became a widely sought after food, and you have to remember that back in sort of 1586, and the subsequent years, grain, or the preceding years really, grain was the only real source of food, and to suddenly have this this second food source, if you like, was a big relief, because the potato would help to what's the word I'm looking for, to quench the starvation problem, or to cure the starvation problem that the world was facing. You have to remember that the privileged people of the period back then were very few and far between. As today, the vast majority of the people were poor, sort of working class people that were on the brink of starvation on a daily basis. And when grain is your only source, and the problem with grain is that the people, the everyday person, had no way of storing the grain. So very often they would lose grain to rodents, to pests, to diseases, to mold, and sort of, you would harvest it in August, but by December, you would lost most of your grain through all of those things. And suddenly the potato comes along, and it was very quickly discovered that that all you had to do was keep it dark and dry, and this potato would last all year round. As you can tell from the change in camera, I have moved the camera, and we've got the drone that I've got has a unique thing where I can sit in any one of the tractors and have it track me. So at the moment the drone, as I say, it is sat behind me, but with the flick of my joystick I can swing it either way, and I can still talk and also as well give you some bit better pictures, because the one thing I did notice while I was editing this video is that it wasn't long before those tractors got away from the drone, and I was just sort of holding it in one place. So here, they're able to see more going on. But yeah, so as I say, the potato was a huge relief to the starvation problem that pretty much nearly all of the world faced. So saying about the potato and saying that it became the second most, the second food source, if you like, the reason that it became so popular, especially with farmers, and it was in a way nothing to do with the fact that it cured starvation or helped to go a long way to ease starvation in the world. The reason that the farmers, back in that time, really loved the potato was it was a very versatile crop to grow. It would grow in the poorest of soils, and of course before the potato was introduced, farms had to leave half of their land fallow and grow grain in the other half. Well, if the other half of the land that you're growing grain in is of poor soil quality and not very rich in the nutrients that the wheats and the barleys would have needed, it was mainly wheat back in 1586 that was being grown. But if the soil was not suitable for wheat to be grown in, and you have to remember that the wheats that they were growing back then would not have been the genetic varieties that we would have today, where we could maybe if we've got a soil that's susceptible to a disease, or it hasn't quite got the nutrients that we need, that we could go there and we could plant Skyfall or Crusoe, or any of the sort of milling wheat brands that we could that we could plant to try and solve the problems of of the ground and of the soil. Back then it was just one variety. It was one variety of grain, and obviously when the potato was introduced, what naturally happened was it was one variety of potato, and eventually that would be the downfall, not only for the British Isles, and Ireland included, and Ireland really, from all of the countries in the world that were affected by the disaster that would very quickly develop across the whole of Europe. Ireland was affected the most, and but at the time, the farmers loved the potato because it now meant that you were growing 2 crops every year. And anyone that grows potatoes in today's world knows that if you put first wheat after potatoes, there is a fair chance that you are going to rapidly increase your yields. You're gonna bump those yields up considerably, and that's because of all of the sort of fertilizer that you put on potatoes to help them to grow. And back in the sort of 1500s all the way through up into the sort of 1800s, 1900s, but 1800s really was, well, 1800s was when the whole fertilizer thing began to become more understood, and the importance of it more understood. And guano was the main source of fertilizer, and when Europe started to trade with South America with guano and what was essentially, as I say, the only fertilizer really on the market in mass quantities, guano was one of the main reasons why, as we know it today, the modern fertilizer sort of trade and companies that were developing these fertilizers, and they were taking guano and they were understanding what it was within the guano that was so beneficial to the potato, or the wheat, because they were starting to spread it on wheat, and noticing that yields were increasing as well. And it very quickly became a big market source, that the world was able to trade in. So, as I've said before, the poor were constantly on the edge of starvation. The city high flyers and the people that were rich within the cities, they had a way of storing grain. They were able to store grain, and make it last much longer than what the poor were. And with the poor being so reliant on the potato, the amount of potato to grain ratio suddenly rose considerably in the favour of the potato. And of course, what they didn't understand, back in the 1500s, 1600s, was that the soils, I suppose it's a bit like, if we just continually took antibiotics, it's often been said that we would become, if you like, immune to the antibiotics, and therefore the diseases and the illnesses that we get would become resistant to it. And this was what was happening in the soils, with the amount of potatoes that were being grown. The diseases, if you like, within the soils, they were becoming resistant to I was going to say to a lot of the sprays that were around then, but there was one main spray that was available with certainly with potatoes. The Colorado beetle came over around about 150 years after the potato was introduced into sort of Europe and the UK. The Colorado beetle eventually, with the trade that was happening between South America and Europe and the UK, sort of, if you like, bought a ticket, jumped on the ship, and came over. And of course, it was wiping out huge acreages of potatoes. And a solution needed to be found, and the modern, as we know today, the modern sort of pesticide and herbicides trade that we came around because of a scientist who discovered that that green paint was the answer that the world was, sort of seeking, if you will. And green paint specifically had a chemical in it that would give it its green pigment colour and make it not only a very popular colour in terms of buildings and walls and things like that, but would, as I say, become a very popular cure to the Colorado beetle and some other fungus diseases that potatoes were susceptible to. However, the one disease that arsenic within the green paint wasn't able to be effective towards was potato blight, and as we go through the history we will obviously come on to potato blight. One, two, one, two, one, two. But with the dangers that was just on the horizon, Ireland was particularly exposed to the coming disaster that would happen. Because of the potatoes' high caloric yield, it meant that the Irish government had found a way that they could keep the masses fed very cheaply and ultimately keep them working. And so what they did was that when a dwelling was set up for a family in Ireland, the councils or the people in charge of the communities in the countryside would divide land up, and you would have a set amount of land dependent on the amount of people in your family, and this land got divided up and was called a holding, or your holdings. And it's believed that this is where the modern day word and origin of small holding comes from. In Ireland, as I say, land was divided up, and it was divided up so that each family could grow their own field, or fields if they were lucky enough to have smaller fields. If one person had, say, 5 acres of one field, or another person may have 2.5 acre fields, but this land was to be used to grow potatoes only. You could not grow grain in it. There would be people specifically, if you like, licensed within the countryside that would be able to grow the grain that you also needed, but the vast majority of people were only allowed to grow potatoes. So it's believed that around 40% of the Irish people ate no other solid food source than the potato. The same was true for, they think, roughly between 10 to 30% of covering the whole of the European continent, if you like. Again, sort of Ireland being the main, Russia being second, and then coming down you've got Germany, you've got Spain, France and Portugal, that were also relying very heavily on a one generic or genetic variety of food source. And of course the South Americans, on the other hand, they were growing many varieties of potatoes on a yearly basis, and this would stand them in very good stead. Another interesting fact that I learned whilst doing my research of the humble potato was the fact that the South Americans were making a lot of their pottery out of potato. So we've all heard of sort of pottery being made out of guano, which is bat droppings. All being sort of made out of that and being fire kilned, and it is believed that in the world today there are at least 3 drinking vessels that are made solely out of potato that have still survived and are now being preserved in museums around South America and sort of all the other places, and I just sort of kind of thought that was quite something, and something I would like to see, that the potato was actually making sort of pottery and different things like that. So I found that it made me smile, and I found it very interesting. But disaster would eventually strike in the middle of the 19th century with the appearance of Photobithyria infestaceus, or as it's better known today, potato blight. It wiped out over half of Europe's crop, devastating Ireland the most. 1 million or more died of starvation, and 2 million more Irish people emigrated, mostly to the Americas. This represented a loss of over a third of Ireland's whole population, which has never recovered. Ireland today is the only European country with a population less than what it was 150 years ago, which I just find staggering. I don't know about you, but to think that the way the world's population has, grown in the last, not even the last 150 years, but in the last sort of, say 40 years since I've been alive, or 43 years that I've been alive, to think that the population of Ireland is smaller than what it was 150 years ago is quite something. And as I say, the Irish, mainly emigrated to the Americas, some to Australia, a lot of the Brits around this time, because Britain, although it was not affected, nowhere near on the scale of what Ireland, was affected by the disaster and the potato blight. Mainly because the the holdings that the British people, or the poor British people had, there was a legislation, or a law, or whatever, that a family had to grow. I think it was something like 80% potatoes and 20% grain. And of the 20% of grain that they grew, 10% belonged to the British Parliament, if you like, and that was used for export, and that was used for export to places in South America, who in return would export potatoes to us, but only ever the one variety. And I think that's what I can't stress enough, is that if and hindsight's a wonderful thing, and no disaster has ever happened with the benefit of hindsight, but if we'd have just had a second, third, fourth variety that we were able to grow, the disasters that was felt all over Europe, just wouldn't have happened. So it's as I say, it's a crying shame, and must have been devastating at the time for those that experienced it, lived through it, and also that had family and relatives and friends and loved ones, sort of die or emigrate, because of it. It honestly must have been horrendous. And as I say, but that's a small brief history of time of the potato. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I spoke clearly enough and got the points across, that I was hoping to get across. And as I say, I hope you enjoyed listening about the potato and how it came to be the food source it was back then, or the sole food source that it was back then, to now how we don't rely on it. If the potato crops today, yes, financially, certainly for myself, it would be devastating if I lost, if I lost, half or 3/4 of my, acreage of potatoes to potato blight. It's something that we take very seriously. It's something I think that every farmer that grows potatoes takes very seriously, and we spray every 7 days to prevent potato blight. And after any significant amount of rainfall, we also, as well, once the leaf is dry on the potato, we then go out and spray again. And sort of coming up, you will see videos of us, or a video. I won't do lots of videos, but a video where we talk about the sprays that we've got, the chemicals that we can use, the natural things that we can use, to try and combat these diseases and all these problems that happen in the potato fields. Not only mine, but sort of across the world. And of course, we're very much governed and policed on what we can and can't use, as opposed to the rest of the world and the rest of Europe. And then, ironically, the government set all of these, laws and legislations, and we can't use this and we can't use that. And then we send all of our good, high-quality food abroad, and we then import all of the food that has got the chemicals on that we banned because they were unsafe for human consumption. So there's there's probably many countries out there that are getting a fantastic quality of food that doesn't have nowhere near the poisons and chemicals on. Meanwhile, in a country where it's banned, we're being made to eat it. We're not being made to eat it, but seeing as it's the only food that we have come into the country, we don't really have a huge deal of choice in the whole matter. But that's just how messed up not only this Labour government is, but how messed up all governments have been for the last probably 20 some odd years. Obviously you've all seen the videos over the last week or so, or coming up to a week, regarding the budget, and it's just it's the next step in ending farming in this country. There's a farm not too far from us, who are going to sell up, and and I've said it's not worthwhile passing the farm down. They're going to sell up and cash in on the farm that way. Me as a farmer, that's very sad to hear, but as a businessman, I'm sort of thinking, okay, that's great, more land for us, we can increase our acreage, we can keep growing. But actually, when you sit and you think about it, is that the best thing that I can be doing at the moment? Capital gains tax has been frozen. I wonder how long that's going to be remain for, and until that goes up, as I say, the inheritance tax has now gone to 20% on £1 million. And to put that into some sort of context, there's roughly about £2.5 million worth of tractors sitting in this field at this moment in time, and that goes without the implements on the back. And then further down on the hill there, we've got our tractor with our seed potatoes on, and trailer and our forklift, and if you add those into the equation, you're nearly getting to 3 million. You know, this year we're looking to buy a new combine, a bigger combine. You know, the combines that we're sort of looking at, you're looking at easily another £500,000. So, you know, to have inheritance tax on £1 million is a massive kick in the teeth and insult to British farmers. And you know, I've heard a lot of people say that you know, there's maybe going to be protests. If there is, we will be joining in. But I've also heard a lot of other people say, look, 4 years and this mess will be over, because, you know, Labour will not survive. You know, they promised the ordinary everyday person that taxes wouldn't go up, and taxes have gone up, you know, exponentially, and you know, we're just again kicked by everyone. You know, like Boris with the whole Brexit and the money for, you know, the NHS. We've basically been lied to again in a campaign, and I don't think it's going to be too long before the British people start to take a stand and start to say, actually no, now you're going to start to listen to us, because we're sick of this. You know, I don't necessarily support Conservative and I don't necessarily support Labour, but I have said all along that you know, that the leader of the Labour Party is nothing but a slimy snake, and he needs to be kept very close and watched for even closer. And that's all I'm saying, because as I say, a lot of farmers are very, very upset with what's going on in the country at this moment in time. But as I say, that's enough for the history, that's enough for my little rant. I don't normally go political, but yeah, as I say, it's another kick in the teeth and in the life of British farming. So what I'll do is, at the end of this video, I will very quickly show you us how we fill the potato planters and how we go about that, and then we will call an end to this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I think I'm supposed to say something along the lines of like and subscribe and share. Apparently my my grandkids are saying, oh, you know, Granddad, you're not saying the right things at the end of your video, you've got to say this and you've got to do this. So yeah, apparently it's subscribe, like and share. So if you could do that, that would be absolutely wonderful. And then as I say, if this little channel keeps growing the way it's growing at the moment, then you know, we'll make more videos, and you know, we'll probably turn these videos into vlogs, you know, of sort of daily life on the farm, and you know, what we decide for the future, and you know, sort of what we get up to. Just very quickly, what we think we've decided is that we're going to try and ride out the 4 years, and if we ride out the 4 years, then you know, we should be at the end of this mess. But anyway, as I say, what I'll do is at the end, when the potato pluckers, it will very, very soon need refilling, and I'll add that little bit of video that we recorded filling it up on the end of this. Thanks. Right, so just a little bit on the end of this video. This is how we fill the potato planter back up, and I'll just show you with this one box. So obviously you've already seen the potato planter. It's a Grimmy GL 860 Compacto. Basically means it's a 6 meter, and it's on the back of our vent, as you've already seen it. This is our vent 800 that we've got, and this is our Bailey trailer. We use this mainly for bales, but we do find that it's very, very handy for our potato boxes, because the sides come up, and it helps to keep everything where it should be in transport. The only thing we do find with it is that you know, you don't want to be turning too sharp with it, because it does have a tendency to lean very dangerously over. But yeah, so this is our forklift that we use. It's a vent cargo forklift. It's got rear weights on the back, which help obviously with stacking trailers, helps with unloading, well, loading grain lorries and different things like that. So you're looking, I think if I remember, it's about 120 kilograms kilo of weight on the back, 120 kilo of weight on the back. And this is our WIFO potato box lifter. So bog standard really forklift. I don't know as if we'll be able to. We might have to go a long way away here. We can't really see, but there's basically two tines that go underneath. This clamp, if you like, then folds down over the top against the arms, and then you drive up to the potato planter, and you just simply you know, tip it up. But as I say, I'll quickly show you, and then that will end the video, because I think if I've shot this in, or if I've edited it in order, I've already said my thank yous. So we'll just put this in here. So all we do is we drive up to the planter, get ourselves in nice and square, and then get ourselves as close as we dare, lift it a little bit, and then we swivel our joystick, and the potatoes then fall out into the planter. And yeah, essentially, as I say, all we do then is we just make sure they're all out. We then just lay the empty boxes down on the side, and then we will then go to the tractor and lift off the next box. It's a very good system. We really like it, and as I say, it's very, very good for what we want to do with it. You know, so we're very happy with it. But yeah, so as I've said before, you know, thanks ever so much for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And you know, I wish you all a lovely day. And I'll see you in the next video, when we will look at how we take care of the potatoes in the growing season, ready for when eventually you know, we come to harvest, which, as I've said in the early part of the video, I think I did at least, that we're hoping that's going to be around about the second week of August. So it'll be when you know, the combines are busy, but so too will the potato harvesters be busy as well. But yeah, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you then.